Welcome to Maple and Mezcal podcast, your go to for telecom infrastructure knowledge and technology from a different angle.
Hey, good morning. We're Saturday, July 5th. I'm Pierre Bordeaux, Mr. Maple, seated in Canada. Welcome to our podcast. I have with me Eric Carmona.
Hey, thanks, Pierre. So, this is our first episode. Be patient with us. We don't know
Yep,
about the format, what's going to come out of this. We talk all the time. That's what we do in our jobs. But yeah, let's see how this comes out. And thank you for being here. I hope you like our podcast. And let's give a little bit of intro so you get to know us, right, Pierre?
for
So,
sure.
go for it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm I'm Pierre Bordeaux. I reside up in near Montreal in Canada, and I work with my colleague here, Eric. And as Eric said, we're always chatting about different things. And I have a lot of experience in the telecommunication industry, over about 30 some odd years in cabling and infrastructure, and it's turns out it's a passionate subject for me and for Eric also. And we're going to, all along the podcast, bring in different guests and talk about different things that relate to what we do.
Exactly. Yeah. So, let's per se, my name is Eric. I'm actually based in Boston. Well, I'm based in Massachusetts, but for everyone, Massachusetts, basically Boston or the New England area. I'm an engineer. I'm very passionate about technology and infrastructure. So we were like, you know what? Starting at like when you see people on buying stuff online, or when you're going into YouTube and you start seeing like a lot of people that just start making weird comments, or like, oh yeah, cat 7, cat 8, you should buy this because it has a higher number. That's what we're here for. We want to share that knowledge. We're actually certified. We've been studying these standards for I don't know how many years. Well,
Too
Pierre
long.
probably way much more than me.
Too long. Yeah. So we both have Bixby certifications and other industry certifications. I unfortunately didn't go to school or university in telecommunications because that did not exist in my time. So I'm basically learned from the field and learned with old technicians and just gathered my experience from there. But that's what makes it kind of fun. Eric's a bit younger and much more intelligent than I can be. So we complete each other at that level because sometimes, well, we go to conferences together and he gets things that I don't get, but brings it down to me so that we can understand it. And I look at other ways of looking at things, or older ways maybe, that relate to what we're discussing. So it makes
I
for
think
fun
you're being too
conversation.
modest, Pierre.
Nah.
Yeah. To be fair, that's super smart too. It's just like you said, like that experience of the field. Sometimes I like it. I lack of it a lot, and I've learned from people, going out there, pulling the cables, doing all that. I pulled myself a couple cables, but I couldn't say like I've cabled a whole building like you have.
Yeah. Well, and like that experience, like I've done outdoor fiber. I've pulled fiber in the woods with skidoos and things like that. And so that sometimes when you're setting up sites, or when you're doing things, or when you're doing the job we do, because we didn't actually say what we do exactly. We're both technical systems engineer for a very large
Global manufacturer.
global manufacturer. So our job is to help our customers, which are the internal sales team and their customers, understand technology and understand what we're trying to implement. And we happen to be very experimented in physical infrastructure. So, and how that relates to what the technology is today. And that's kind of where we're going to go with our podcast today. Is we're going to, well, I guess we can dive into it. We're going to talk about AI, but we're going to talk about it in a different way than from what everyone's hearing. Like, oh, AI can do this, AI can do that, and so on. But for AI to work properly, and you can actually ask AI itself, Gemini or Chat GPT, and you'll kind of get the answers that we're talking about today. Is you got to implement structure. Point to point cabling is not necessarily the right way to go for a good infrastructure. And that, I guess, is the segue into our subject. So we're looking at today Sorry, we're
No.
looking at today as the infrastructure to, how do you build it? What do you do? And what do you think when you have to build some of those pods?
Exactly. So, I was just thinking about where did AI and all this started from, Like, let's go even to the sci-fi movies. Which ones was one of the first one that got really scary, that got very popular? At least the ones I can remember from my age. It's like Terminator, right? Oh my
Yeah,
God, AI is coming after you, and you need that, and they can think, and you think about, oh, AI started rewriting itself and all that. But I was just thinking, like, wait, that couldn't be possible if we didn't have the infrastructure of someone plugging in the fiber into the server. Just
exactly.
alone by
No.
that. You know what we've been saying in infrastructure all these years, and we tell our customers, you know what? The first thing, like, just to give you an example, the first thing that if internet fails in your house, what do, Pierre? You plug in and unplug your router, right? Or you kick it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, right?
Well, yeah, yeah.
And then they'll
Usually I'll go to the cellular to try and figure out if there's something going wrong on the network that I'm plugged to figure it out.
Right, but usually, let's go through the IT, what everyone does, right? It's
Yeah,
plug in, plug it on, pull it up. Oh, let us check. Bring the equipment over. That's what they usually do, right? Oh, we'll change your modem. And I've been over these fights for so many times with the people in the infrastructure side of the service provider, and I tell them, like, guys, come on, please come check the cable. And this happened to me like 3 or 4 times in different places I've lived. And guess what the main problem was? Infrastructure. It was the cable. The cable was the problem. It
for
wasn't
sure.
the modem. It wasn't the hardware. It wasn't the software. It was just that cable.
And the cable is, if you read certain studies, most of the time, 80% of the time, or even more percentage, depending who you read and who you check, the cable or the media being used to transport the information on the highway is the issue. And it's the most volatile part. And the funniest thing about this is companies will invest millions of dollars and billions of dollars on equipment, on AI pods, and start cutting corners on the physical infrastructure.
Oh yeah.
Now, and I know people hear this all the time, and I get the face of the customer with the eyes rolling back. You're not going to talk to me again about the infrastructure.
Oh yeah.
You have to. I mean, and one of the best analogies I've had a long time ago, and this is before AI and in the beginning of speaking about infrastructure, some of the first presentations I did in front of some people at some conferences was, if you relate to this because you like luxury cars, right? And when when you when you ride your luxury car on the highway, you like the highway to be like very high quality, right? Because you can test all the options of the car on a high quality road. If you're on the country back road, you won't be running the Ferrari at the speeds that you want to run it. So so that's like the analogy, bringing the infrastructure in to the information highway. And that's usually how I'm going to explain it to some customers, to understand, like, hey, you're investing over $1 million in equipment, and you want to put it on an infrastructure of some type of offshore cable or piece of, okay, it's a podcast, so we're allowed to talk like this, a piece of crap, right? You think you're going to get optimal performance out of it? Probably not, right? So how does that translate? Why do we talk about AI? Well, the highway for AI, if I look at it today versus 10 years ago or 20 years ago for an information technology network, in terms of copper and fiber, it's exponential. Like, it could be 100% above that, more, in terms of density and fiber and copper.
Oh yeah, and it has increased. And well, now that you're saying your analogy, if you're gonna run AI, you're basically always running it like a luxury car, a fast car, Ferrari, Lamborghini, whatever you want to call it.
Totally. Yeah.
So you cannot chip out on the cables because don't get me wrong, IT guys, I know you know a lot about your boxes, your all that stuff, but you forget about the cables and you really chip out on that.
All the time.
all the time, like how much is the percentage what you use on infrastructure compared to to a whole project? Let's say your project's $10 million, because it's real. Those boxes are fucking expensive. But how much you waste in fiber? It's gonna be $100,000 in fiber for a pot.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
It's
definitely.
nothing. And then you still want to chip out because you say, "Oh, it's a cable that I can get on any website and it's cheaper and it's going to work." But if you go down to the manufacturing process, there's so much going on behind that fiber. You might say, "Yeah, I buy this fiber from China or whatever that it's 2 times cheaper, 5 times cheaper." But you forget that that fiber, it's that cheap because they use other process for manufacturing. They don't care about the quality, the impurities that the silicon might
Exactly.
have, and the rest of the elements. So you might say, like, what? How much could it affect? Right, a lot.
Well,
Let's just give you an example.
yeah.
And hear me out.
Yep.
When you go out of the shower and it's all steamed up and you want to look at the mirror, well, it's the same thing. Lights going through and you just wipe it. You still see imperfections until you get like a really clean it up. It's the same with fiber, right? Those small things that are in there that could be like microbands, trash, and all that, and that causes the fiber to actually, well, the light kind of bounces in different ways and kind of slow down, just like the analogy,
Yeah.
and that messes up. Last time I was at Data Center World in Washington. What was it? I can't remember. Like 2 or 3 months ago, I actually met one of the NVIDIA guys, and I was impressed by what he was telling me directly. There's a lot of things that they don't put out there publicly, but they told me like you can ask us in the chats and we'll get back to you. But he told me like we don't want additional connections like on the fiber, but we want structured cabling to do it the right way because they're accounting for the delay in the signal that you
True.
get from every connection. That's precise. They have to be right. So imagine they already accounting for that to make the AI think faster because this also translate like times money, right?
Right.
So if you take longer to process that, people will go to another service that is faster from the AI, right? Because people now want everything faster, faster. That's also some of the tendencies.
Correct.
And then imagine fiber, you causing more errors that you say, but it still works. But it actually you don't see it that it starts adding time and time and time and time, and that just makes it smaller, right?
Well,
It's
and
yeah,
it's two concepts you're talking about, right? Like you're
yeah,
talking about loss, okay,
yeah.
versus latency, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so sorry, I'm looking down at my sheets, but the loss refers to reduction in the strength of power of an optical signal. Okay?
Yes.
Latency refers to the time it takes for the signal to travel from one point to another.
Yes. So everyone's heard about lost packages, right? And that
Yeah.
for in fiber, right?
Yes.
So, but in
So
case of
so even in a well-structured environment, you'll have both, right? It's inherent, right? But I beg to differ where if my structured package is correct and I'm reducing as much as possible loss, then that time for the signal to travel for the latency should be good, right? Because I'm trying to understand what you were saying in the beginning about they want to account for the latency so that so that I guess AI can crunch the numbers properly and so on.
so what he
But it's two
mentioned,
different. It's right.
yes, yes, but let's take in account another factor. So
Mm-hmm.
latency is not a lot of affected by the distance in pods, right? Because pods might be 4 cabinets, 6 cabinets, which doesn't
Exactly.
translate too much. It's five,
No.
10 meters, 15 meters. Uh,
Correct.
for the English speaking guys that don't know the metric imperials, probably about 15, 30 feet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got Mr. Canadian here and Eric with his Mexican background.
And
We've all
living in the US,
adopted.
so
Yeah, exactly. So we've adopted the metric system, and that's a funny thing about just a sidetrack quick about fiber. Everywhere you go, people talk about fiber in meters and in the metric, and everywhere you go for copper, everyone talks in feet.
Slowly
Go
but
figure.
surely,
Yeah.
everyone's going converted.
I don't think so. All right. So let's get back to where you
Okay.
were. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So 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 what happens, right? Usually over long distances when we were looking at fiber, we have to worry about latency, right? Because we're
Attenuation and latency. Yeah.
exactly because we're talking about kilometers in a thousand of kilometers, right? Or
Exactly.
hundreds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But this is
definitely.
so short, right? But the
Hmm.
span of or the speeds that the GPUs are working on it I don't know, it's we're talking about nanoseconds, right? Like that's what the algorithm is calculating for, right? So loss is usually caused by something that interferes in the light path. That's the right
Yep.
thing to say, right?
Correct.
So that loss can be caused by many things. One of the things that I
Bends.
was talking about might be the low quality of the fiber because has microbands, or the microbands
Well,
could be
and
imperfect
microbends,
fibers.
well, microbends can be imperfections, but can also
Right.
be a pulling tension when
Exactly.
installing the fiber, and
Wrong
that's like
band radius.
super. Yeah, exactly. Or and bend radius, so that's super
Exactly.
important. You know.
Yes. Yes. Because remember, at the end of the day, we're getting light through it. It's lasers, right? And a lot of different spectrum of lasers. That's what actually makes it possible, right? Increase the bandwidth. But so if one of those paths gets interrupted because of the microbands, it's too tight. You lose light faster. It doesn't get to where it has to be, right?
So now that translates to the time it takes for the signal to travel from point A to point B.
Exactly. And then take another thing that really affects the fiber, and usually when it's already installed and you say like, "Hey, this fiber stopped working," probably someone unplugged that fiber, got it dirty, and got dirty in the connector. That's like
Totally.
99% of the problems that happens with fiber after it's been
Not
installed.
yes. Yeah,
It's
definitely.
dirty.
Dust caps are there to stay on, not to be taken off until connected. And one of the lessons learned about fiber from day one is you never assume it's clean. You inspect, clean, inspect, clean, inspect, and clean and plug. So you never, 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 never assume that fiber's ready to be out of the package and plugged in automatically.
So you have to be very careful with that, right? Especially when you're doing fiber for AI, they expect the best fiber, the best connections, the lowest dBs of loss in the
Yeah,
fiber.
yeah,
So
totally.
So going to that, that's why it's so important to have the best infrastructure and just any brand, to be honest. Like, because that's one thing we didn't mention at the beginning of the podcast. Even though we work for a global manufacturer, that's why we're not saying any brands. We want to be vendor agnostic. We want to share the knowledge. That's part of
For
what we
sure.
are here.
Share the knowledge, but share our knowledge and our point of view. And believe me, if we're wrong on something, just let us know. Like, and we'll stand corrected if we are, because we don't pertain to say that we know everything and understand everything properly, because we do look at everything, and you do get both of our opinions and our thoughts on it. But hey, sometimes we could be in the error, and I'm glad to hear it if I am, so that I can learn to correct that and make that better, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Both. We're here to learn. We don't know everything, but also hear us out,
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Make your
no,
own
totally.
judgment.
And again, like we could show you pictures of pods and things like that, and Eric probably at the editing might show some things, but just certain of the presentations that are out there and the visualizations of what an AI pod can look like and what type of configuration or cabling that's going on in back of it is mesmerizing. It's crazy. You know, when we first saw the spine and leaf configurations, for me and you, like spine and leaf, oh, it's a tree with the spine and the leaves, and we kind of understand it at that level, at the physical level. And then it starts translating into, yeah, that represents a connection. So this guy is connected to every other guy or gal in the network twice because they're redundant paths, and everyone's talking together and they're using different. So there's a lot of things going on within that configuration, and when you translate it physically to what that looks like in terms of connections, The only feasible thing in my mind is you got to apply a structure to it. You cannot do it point to point. And one of the worst ways I learned that was in the beginning of the SAN networks, the storage area networks. Like I got hit like a deer in the headlights the first time I did one of those networks. You wouldn't believe the amount of spaghetti, and spaghetti meaning the fibers all
Hmm.
intertwining and trying to connect everything and doing direct connects and trying to make everything work to figure out that, oh my god, we have to figure out a way to get the fibers up, get the in those days it was a brocade unit, to get the blades represented properly so that we can patch this properly and make that work in a coordinated way. And it was just like, it was totally crazy. I believe me, Eric, like I say, when you learn from those mistakes, like once we had set the first one up, the only thing we could do is tear everything out and reapply a structure to it,
Yeah.
as ridiculous as that can sound. So think of it today with double, triple, quadruple, or tentruple, however you want to lay it out. You can't do that without putting something in there that'll help you manage it properly and do it properly.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And you know what? I think we've been growing little by little on the network side, and I think some of the challenges that it's the financial side of it.
Yeah.
Again, maybe the IT guy actually understands us and goes like, "Shit, I need infrastructure cable. I don't want to just do point to point connection." But then it comes down to the financial guys, and they say like, "Mm-mm. How much does that cable need? Do you need a patch panel? But you can do a connection one to one, right? That's
Yeah.
how I do it in
Yeah.
my house. What do you need
Yeah.
another connection,
Well,
right?" And they're like, "I want to save money. I don't care about the cable." I think a
yeah.
lot of
Or they're going to say, go buy the patch panel on Amazon and buy a China replicate
no.
of, well, yeah, but
Oh,
that's,
we've seen those
yeah,
customers. Everyone has got that customer. It's like, come on,
exactly.
guys.
And well, yeah. But it's hard sometimes because, um, you understand that there's certain amount of dollars to spend, but at the same time the physical infrastructure of an AI pod or of a network is not even like 5% of the cost of the money that they're investing for the equipment.
Yeah. So, well, now that you're talking about money, I think we should start also educating the folks out there about what's going on with the fiber, right? And let's talk about the different types of fiber because we've got OM1, OM2, OM3, OM4 and 5, OS1,
Yeah,
and OS2. So, what the
correct.
hell
Yeah.
is that? Is the higher the number, the better? Yes, you could say that. Yeah, it's definitely
Yes and no.
better.
Depends. Yeah.
Wait, hold on, because
Yeah.
copper
Oh
and
yeah. Oh
fiber,
yeah.
it's two different monsters. So, okay, do we want to talk copper or not? What do you think? Should we start copper? It's fair, right?
Yeah, well, and I think the copper applies really to the out of band management. It doesn't really apply to
Of
the
course.
yeah, to the actual AI network, but it's still the way to get to the
But you need
switches
it,
from the
right?
back door. Yeah.
Exactly. So, okay, so let's do a quick recap about category
Yeah.
cables. Nothing fancy, right?
No, no,
And
no.
let's go to the ones that are out there that we still do. So we'll start at Cat 5e, then Cat
Yep.
6, Cat
Hmm.
6a, and
Yep.
Cat 8.
Yep.
Hey, and I think the folks are, wait, what happened to
And
Cat 7?
yeah, exactly. Notice
So let's talk
notice we're
about
not.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay, well,
And yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's talk about Cat 5e, what it was originally designed for. So get ready for the comments. So Cat 5e, it's actually designed for a bandwidth of 100 megahertz, and it's actually designed to handle 100 megabits per second. That's the speed, it's designed for. Then we got Cat 6, which is designed for 250 megahertz and 1 gig speed. Okay, folks? And you're going to
Yep.
say, oh, I've run it up to 10 gig. Hold on.
Yes.
This is what standard says. We're going to talk about the other one. Then we got Cat 6a, which is 500 megahertz and designed for 10 gigs.
10 gig. Yeah, that's
And
definitely.
then you would say, well, how about Cat 7? Okay, so let's go between standards and let's talk about it, right? Standards, we have basically two main bodies for the structured cabling, which is TIA, which is the one that's started everything, and then we got the standards for ISO, which are usually using globally. But guess what? Usually ISO copy a lot of the standards from TIA, but sometimes it's more adjusted to European regions. So back in the days, there was this manufacturer in Europe that was like, oh, I want to innovate and create something for the market, and they created Cat 7 and 7A. But in ISO standards, they use actually letters, right? So you had classes, right?
Yeah.
So class E is Cat 6, class EA is a Cat 6A,
Enhanced augmented.
and they were like, oh, what comes after E? So they were like, oh, we need class F. So they created, they wanted to bring it to the American market, and they were like, oh, let's market this as Cat 7, right? But remember what I was saying about the bandwidth? So Cat 7 has a bandwidth of 600 megahertz and still a speed of of a Cat 6A, which is 10 gig.
10
And
gig. Yeah.
then they created like, oh, we're gonna want to make an improved one because the bandwidth between 500 and 600, it's nothing. Like all major manufacturers can achieve that with Cat 6A.
Correct.
And then Cat 7A, it's 1,000 megahertz and 10 gig still. So no big difference, to be honest. We talked to a lot of switch manufacturers, and they were like, we're not going to create any port that it's 1,000 megahertz and 10 gigs. Doesn't make sense. So kind of TIA backfired on them, and they're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to create a Cat 8, which actually makes a difference. It's 2,000 megahertz, which is the initial bandwidth of OM1 fiber, the basic fiber, and 40 gigs. But we are limited by a distance of 30 meters. And
Yeah.
it's
Channel of 30 meters
and
and
Cat 7
shielded.
to Cat 8, everything's shielded. So the
So,
folks out
yeah,
there who has worked at shielded, they know it's a pain in the ass. You have to properly ground both sides, and
bond.
that
You got to
doesn't
properly bond both sides. But the other thing is,
bond and ground.
like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly. But and that's very important in that
Yeah.
in this discussion because a lot of people mix up and we can do this in another podcast, get a couple of our grounding and bonding experts that we know to talk about this, because there's the bonding, which is the shielding, and there's the grounding, which is dissipating and doing all that. But in a category 8 solution and a 30 meters, you're looking at a data center solution for copper. Everyone's ready out there. Everyone has it. They've designed it. They're ready to go, but they're not producing it.
Oh yeah.
Why?
Well,
Because
some manufacturers have sold Cat 8. I've seen it out there.
okay,
But
but it's
uh
a marketing play, right?
it's a
It,
marketing
like,
play. It's like
yeah,
10 times more expensive. Well, just saying like the
yeah.
expression, and you're never gonna use it because Switch's manufacturing that we actually talk to them directly, they're like, we're not gonna develop that port for 40 gigs and 30 meters. Fiber can do it and way half the price.
Well, yeah, exactly. Less expensive. Like, why would I produce an SFP to do that on copper when you can do it on fiber fairly easy at probably at a lesser cost?
Oh yeah, in the industry, we're all saying like Cat 8, it's basically dead. It's a dead category. So we're not gonna use it.
Yeah.
And going back
So,
to AI, like out of
yeah.
band management, we're using a Cat 6. We're not even going
Yeah.
Cat 6A.
No. No, exactly. And then you can apply to that AI copper structure pre-terminated cable, and then just basically deploy it in a very orderly fashion to cohabitate with the fiber and so on. But again, there you apply structure to that. You don't do point to point. Some do. I don't know what to say at that level. I'm not a big point to point. Sorry, I'm looking for the English term, but I don't buy into that, because ever since I started doing telecommunication and cabling and plugging phones in, there was always a structure applied to it. You started from the switch, you went to the main distribution frame, from there you went to the riser, and from the riser you went to the user's phone, and then you had a signal. So I learned very early on that's how structure works. Some people might say, why is there colors on the cables? It's all about structure. It's all about which one do you connect in the first port, and what are the ones that follow, and why. So for me, my learning was if I apply structure, I'll achieve and get success. for a long time,
Yes.
because I could probably go back to a plant called Pratt and Whitney near where I live, and some of those old connections are probably still there and they're still operational, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I trying
No,
not to go too
I
far
agree.
into it, but yeah.
Let's talk about the
Um,
fiber for AI,
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Let's move on to fiber and the world of glass.
the world of glass. Let's talk about
Yeah,
now. We did it for copper, now we have to do it for fiber, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
we've got
And some of the big questions around this, and I think we can eliminate OM1 all the way up to OM2, optical multimode fiber, 62.5 micron core. That's gone.
Mhm.
A lot of it today resides in OM4 and 5.
Yeah.
5, I think, is implicated more in the technology that you're going to use to send your signals. So honestly, I don't see a big play of OM5. And if someone tells you got to put OM5 in
They
because
want your
it's the
money.
latest thing, yeah. Well, yeah, because it's the latest and greatest. Just don't agree. And you know enough people where we work that can debunk that very simply. I think the
So,
choice
yeah.
today is, I'll stop right after. I think the choice today is, do I go multi mode or do I go single mode? And there's been a lot of change in the single mode transceivers or SFPs or however you want to call them on shorter distances now. So there's interesting things going on.
Yeah. So I actually gonna complement that going back to the technology of the course between the multimode and single mode. So multimode is actually one of the things from multimode is because you could basically send a lot of lasers, well, different colors through it because the core it's bigger. It's a 50 micron compared to single mode, which is 9 micron. Historically, multimode fiber has been used for shorter distances, and higher speeds, and then single mode was used for very long distances. The basically just quick example, transcontinental cables have always been single mode because you can use a very powerful laser, which were very expensive, and send it across the world, which we still use,
Yep,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
And pandemic happened. Data centers started growing because everyone was home and we needed more computing power everywhere. And turns out, well, multimode fiber has historically been cheaper. No, has been more expensive, but the optics were cheaper, and the single mode fiber was cheaper to make,
Cheaper,
and
but
the
the
optics
optics
were more
were, yeah,
expensive. And
yeah.
usually, all the optics would be so powerful because they were so limited that you couldn't use it for short distances because basically you would see
Because it's too
it would
powerful.
blind it, it would blind the
Yeah,
other side.
exactly. Yeah, totally.
So the pandemic happened, the hyperscalers, data centers, Google, Microsoft, Waveflix, all those guys started. Some of those really smart guys turned out to be like, well, we have these massive data centers that we cannot support with multi-mode, so they just started buying a whole bunch of optics for single mode, and that dropped the prices. And manufacturers actually started creating transceivers that were made for short distances.
For a short distance. And that's really important at that level because
Exactly.
5 years ago, companies would approach me or some of our propeller heads, but our engineers into conversations on what do we do? What do we choose? Because we're building our network today and we're going to be using it in 5 years, but we don't know what 5 years is bringing to us. And we translate this to now, 5 years is AI. So I have, and there's more problems around power than the actual fiber networks, but the idea that, yeah, no, I know it's a whole nother ball game there too. But the idea is like, where do we draw the line and what do we choose? And we talked a bit about it coming down to money and budgets and things like that. So, it's ironing itself out to a point where that delta is so not there between a multi-mode and single mode. Like it's there, but it's not like it used to be. So now I think a lot of people are faced with what do we do, you know? And that's like it's really interesting to see where that's taken us because it also relates to the type of technology you're going to use to transmit the signal. So, if you're doing parallel optics, are you doing serial optics, transmit, receive, and duplex, and so on? So all of that comes and starts to play in what people are thinking or doing, or the type of transceivers that they're. So I'm sure transceivers is not the right term, but the SFPs or the
Oh, transfers,
GBICs or
okay.
whatever. Yeah, like you know where I'm going. It's like whatever optic transmission equipment you're using is going to dictate close to what type of fiber you're going to be using. So I think the money resides there on the choice that you're going to say I'm going to use multi-mode or I'm going to use single mode fiber. And then what is it down the road? What's the next 5 years? Like we're doing AI right now. What's going to happen in the next 5 years?
Well, now that
And
you're
that
talking about it, that's very interesting because the type of fiber that we can use, it's usually like NVIDIA. We have to talk about NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the one that actually is putting a
yeah.
lot of that stuff in, right?
Yep.
So multimode, I think they're considering a lot about because it's easy. It has a
Yeah.
lot of tolerance for
Yep.
mistakes. It's very easy to implement, right? But the new thing about it is that they're considering to use APC connectors instead of UPC.
Yeah, angle
For the people
polish.
that
Yeah.
don't know APC, it's angle polish connector. They have an
Yeah,
angle
it's
between 8 and 9 degrees, so that
yeah,
theoretically reduces reflections
correct.
when it's in short distances.
Yeah, it's not APC Schneider.
Don't say brands.
I know. I was just joking. I was just joking. But yeah, it's a yeah,
Yeah. So with that said, it's a debate because when I was talking to the NVIDIA engineer, he was telling me, you know what? The thing is that we have to make it accessible to everyone. It doesn't matter the brand. Like there's like three main brands for infrastructure cabling, right? We're not gonna say it right now, but they say like we want to sell more. That's the approach of Nvidia, right? They want to sell the GPUs to everyone. So making it APC, that even though it's a cheaper cable and a cheaper connector, might avoid those problems in the future because our very geek R&D guys in our company, we've talking to those guys that have the PhD after the PhD of whatever. I don't know those guys. There's like the very smart people. They say that we don't need the APC. They've done the testing in the labs and everything and say like, we don't need it. And NVIDIA is like, we need it because we want to make sure that
yeah.
anyone can use it, you know? So it's like, oh my God, it's gonna turn into a
Well,
big debate.
that's one thing that brought
Yeah,
APC to multi-mode fiber, right?
exactly. Now
Go
APC
back
in multimode, yeah.
go well go back 2 years. There's no discussion around APC multi. Well, maybe three, okay, but yeah, there's no discussion around that, and nobody's talking about it. Oh, you hit single mode, yeah. Now there's a discussion of APC, and APC goes back even further because it goes to the CCTV networks and the fiber being used, and the
On
less
networks.
back on networks, but for video less back reflection, better signal, better quality, no mosaic and whatever, right? So angle polish is not something that was invented today. It's been around for a
Oh
long,
yeah.
long time, but it's been exclusive to single mode up to 2, 3 years ago, where it makes the guest star appearance in a multi-mode link.
Yeah, and let's be real. The other thing why a lot of people didn't want to use APCs because first you have to do the connectors on field, and just getting polish a connector on the field to be
Yeah,
flat
no,
was already a
no.
pain. Imagine doing
Yeah,
an 8-degree angle on the field.
no,
It was crazy.
it's a manufactured connector, right?
Exactly. That's
And
why.
then, well, transpose that now to an MPO connector, which is 12 fibers aligned all in the same connector with an angle polish.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
cannot, you could simply not do that in the field.
oh my God! I have to say something. I cannot hold it
Yeah.
in my head. Remember when we were last time at Big C in Florida, and this manufacturer, I'm gonna say the name,
No, no.
was saying that only his MPO connectors would work with him, with his connectors. And I was like, what are you talking
No.
about? It's a standard.
It's a
Everyone's connectors. Your cassettes work with this
form
cassette.
factor. Yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh my God. Sometimes they say,
But like, so, yeah, sometimes people say weird things, but again, that goes back to perception and understanding. And what I think in this particular case was, I think he was just trying to convey something that was misunderstood. But if we go back to angle polish has to line up in an angle, right?
yes.
So you can't reverse polarity on it,
Well, I
right?
agree with that. Yeah.
You can only change it from male to female,
Huh.
right? So
Right. Right.
those angles gotta line up, right? And so go back to what you were saying about this guy. Like, we know, well, us, but maybe not everyone, but MPO is a form factor and it's a standard connector and it's built
Right.
that way, right? If you have MPO 12, MPO 8, same form factor, MPO 16, form factor looks the same, but there's an offset on the key and so on. So just kind of lost of where we were going, but the idea was that it's really important. And one of the big differentiators for APC is the green housing. So usually when you see that green housing on a multi-mode or a single mode MPO or even an LC connector, then you know that
It's
it's an angle
APC,
polish. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's on the standard. It's not a manufacturer thing. You have to
No,
remember that.
exactly. No, no, no. Everyone, well, and we work like for a standards based company, right? So everything we make is based on standard or above, right? So a connector or any piece of cable or things like that is all based on what the standards, and then you work. The standards is basically the table where we all meet, right? So
Right.
you could imagine it as being the podcast of everyone is at the table and your performance is at everyone the level that everyone can meet, and
Exactly.
then you exceed. But I think we're veering off, so we'll come back.
It's a podcast. Come on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
This conversation happens on a day-to-day basis,
yeah.
just on
Well, yeah,
not
no,
one thing.
definitely.
So no, that's really true, right? So talking about and going back to the fiber pots right now, it's gonna be a connection multimode, just because again it's shorter distance. It's gonna be
Yep.
APC, right? Take that into
Yeah,
consideration.
angle polish, yeah, for sure.
And call your engineer that you trust the most with helping you with polarity. Remember,
Yes.
I love it the saying that the people we know in engineering say like, if you don't have a headache doing polarity, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, yes. And in my early days I learned polarity the hard way. Plug something in, doesn't work. What do I do? You know, why isn't it working? And then using my anti-laser glasses to try and see if I see the reflection of the laser. So I did that
Don't look
once,
at the
never
laser
did.
anytime.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, please. I did that once, and I'll never do it again. But if you're doing those installs, use power light meters. They're there for that. And light doesn't work light to light; it works light to receptor. So that's the base of polarity. Is that you know?
Yes.
And it's simple yet complicated to understand. And you're right about in any network physical infrastructure layout or AI layout, you wanna get help from people that do this for their living and that build these networks. Even us, when we the networks that we build, the fiber infrastructure, we go through processes to make sure that what we're building is going to work when you plug it in. It's going to be plug and play. And there's a design to that, and there's parts that need to be used in the right fashion. There's methods with the fiber. We didn't even talk about that. We're touching on polarity a bit, but polarity is directly related to the methods you're using. And some schools don't mix methods. Other schools, they'll say, well, if you're extending a link, you should just use a method A. So we've got a couple of podcasts lined up down the road
Yeah, let's
to
leave that
get
for another
to
podcast. That could
yeah
be an
to get
entire day
right in.
conversation.
Exactly, to get right into those type of conversations and how do you figure it out and how do you set it up so that when you are deploying, that it's plug and play and it's operational. And again, that's really important. Why? Because it just provides for a faster installation, a better installation, and again, a structured approach will help you with that.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? I think we talk about fiber.
Yep.
It's very important. So it's one of the things that is changing. Just to get back, it's a hell lot of a fiber you need. Use a good quality
Yeah.
product.
For sure.
Make sure that you always clean the fiber, right? It doesn't guarantee that it's completely packed a connector. It might still be dirty. Have a microscope at hand to look at it. If you're already deploying a pod, they have enough money to use the right equipment, you know?
Well,
Don't
one
let them
thing I
cheap out
used
on infrastructure.
No, no. Well, and I'll let you in on one of my secrets, okay? So I worked
Ooh.
for a large credit union, okay? And I took care of all the physical infrastructure for that credit union. Banks are ruthless for not spending money,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
And I would often get into the cat fight about, give me budget because I got to put an infrastructure in. I got to do this. You want to do that. And one day it dawned on me, we were sitting all in this super big meeting room with the vice president of such and such of information technologies, and he was saying, like, I want us to be the reference, and I want our credit union to be at a level, we want to give top level to our customers. So that kind of records into my head, and go on about my day. And one day I get this big project that we're going to move a few thousand people from one building to another, and I get the project to build the physical network of the
Wow.
of this project. Okay, and I'm getting quotes in. We're looking at what it's going to cost to build it, and I get the call from one of the VPs to go up to their office. I walk in and they say, "Well, we're looking at what you're trying to spend, and it's a lot of money." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, I listened to you the last time at your meeting, and you said you wanted to be like up there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm applying your strategy to the physical infrastructure of the network that I'm building for your equipment to work on." And I got that look that, okay, I understand. He said, we're going to spend the money, but at the same time, he said, just try and look at where we can save some so that, it looks good. But the idea is that I used the I used the company's strategy to apply to my everyday job and my physical infrastructure to get my project to go through and get them funding to be able to put what I thought and what in my mind what I designed for that network to be optimal and to be operational like even 10 years later.
Hmm.
So I find that a lot of times we get that talk about cost of doing business and so on, but sometimes you have to just go a step further with the discussion to be able to bring it to a level that the person spending the money understands it properly.
Right. Oh yeah.
Doesn't
That's
always work. Doesn't always work, but that's one of my tricks that I had up my sleeve that I quickly understood that it helps and it makes it operational. It still works today, you know, because we work for a global manufacturer. How would I say we're not the least expensive one in the market? So when we're designing what we're doing for, be it for AI or anything else, well, we're designing for someone who works in the IT department that has to take that and run and get the project going. Well, I try to give them ammo to say, well, here's why you're doing it. Here's why you're using us or three other reputable manufacturers. Those are the reasons.
Hey, I think
Don't cut.
you touched on a very interesting point that I hadn't remember about AI. You were talking right now about creating union of financial institutions. So I think that we're talking about the next step in AI. It's going to be
Mhm.
like there's going to be two types of AI data centers. One that it's going to be an inferencing data center, and that one that it's going to be basically doing all the hard.
Mhm.
So like
Yeah.
the hardware is going to be based on the huge data centers, which going to spend millions. But maybe a financial institution or maybe a labs or someone that does not want their data outside, it's going to have an inference in data center. So let's just give it an example easy, right? So ChatGPT was developing a huge data center, and now they're going to sell their code so they can use it in a institution of financial which have, instead of a 20 pod data center, they will only have
One.
four.
Yeah. Yeah.
or one
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cabinet, right? That will
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
local processing with the local
Correct.
information so it doesn't go through the cloud or outside their data center, which is critical. Security, right? Everything's about privacy and security too.
Correct. Yeah.
And so one of the other things that we talk about AI, it's the power draw, right? If you've been involved, you've seen probably the news like we don't have enough power. Power is already super expensive everywhere, and so many few places have enough power to get these energy savvy data centers.
Yeah.
So those huge data centers gonna consume megawatts of power, but you will still be consuming power in your data center building, but maybe not that much. Again, because you're already using what the AI has learned in the other places.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing about power, right? In data centers, because everything you basically consume in the data center has to be dissipated in a way, and a lot of it it's through heat, right? So a few years ago, you remember we were talking about heating, that heating you would say, oh, it's so many BTUs or it's so many tons of cooling you need. And now it has turned way much easier. Basically, if you consume 1 watt of power, you have to dissipate 1 watt of heat, right? So
Right.
if
Yeah.
your rack is consuming 15 kilowatts of power, you have to have an equipment that can dissipate 15 kilowatts of heat. So
Correct.
that makes calculations very easily. But that
Well,
has also
yeah.
happened because we have been able to redirect the heat with owl containment, with a more efficient systems and all that, which can be a whole different subject. I think that we're gonna have to do another podcast for that because I
For
think we're
sure,
running
for
out of
sure.
time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, and I think we need to do something that revolves around that because one AI box is technically about 10 kilowatts of power.
That's a very
So think
small small pot.
so you talked about 15 kilowatts for a cabinet. Now, if you have 2 units of AI in your cabinet, you got 20 kilowatts, and if you have four, you got 40 kilowatts. Even heat exchanging doors can't handle that amount of heat. Again, that's a subject for another time where we could talk about cooling
Different types of cooling.
you
Yeah,
know
definitely.
containment versus exhaust and all kinds of things like that. But again, that the structured cabling has a play in that,
Oh yeah.
because the more you're structured and not running cables everywhere, the better your airflow is, the better you're managing that, the more efficient it's going to be. And by being more efficient, it translates into maybe fan speeds running less fast. And if the fan speeds are not overheating, then the AI is operating better because you're being more efficient. Sometimes people think like I go too far in the thought process, but I think it's like the butterfly effect, right? Just one hit of the wings could have big effect in the whole big picture of it.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like in infrastructure, a lot of people think that it's just the cable, right? But no,
No,
it's not just the cable. It's how
no,
you're gonna deliver power, how you're gonna do the cooling, where the
yeah.
data center is located, what's the weather, even where the data center
Oh
is
yeah,
located.
totally. Totally.
What is it going to made of? Are you having enough insulation? Do you have seismic rating? Do you have, oh my God, so many things that
Oh,
people don't take into consideration that you need to
piles
build
and
for
piles
technology.
of detail, but again that's where structured cabling plays in that game and plays very well. Contrary to some people who would say, nah, we can just direct connect everything and we're fine. Yeah.
Exactly.
Go ahead and call us later.
I know. Well, you know what? Pierre, this has been an amazing chat. I think we have to cut
Yeah.
it short. I can't believe we've already talked for an hour of this.
Yeah, I was actually just looking at the recording time, and I thought, oh my god, okay, that went by. That's quite interesting, and I hope eventually we'll get some comments about the format and how we're doing it. I
Well,
think
yeah,
the
drop your
discussion
comments
was
below. I don't
yeah.
know. This is the first time I've done it.
Yeah,
Drop your
we haven't
comments.
all set
That's what they
we
say.
haven't set that all up, but I know that when we were together in Chicago, Some of the subjects I wrote down was, I want to look at the world of fusion splice-on connectors and how that's changing how we're deploying in the physical structure. We do want to invite our good friend Jeff to talk about polarity, and Jeff is
Wait, don't tell anyone yet, because if they're listening to it, like they're what? Don't say
yeah.
the guest. Just say what we're gonna talk about.
Okay, because I was gonna say, okay,
Let's
well,
keep the suspense on one man.
we're gonna have a colorful guest with us to talk about polarity, and we have another guest from the land down under that I don't know yet what we have established what we would like to talk about. We're also going to look at FMPS, or fault managed power system, and class 4 power. Talk about that, because
Okay.
that is quite interesting on where that's going. Granted, we're in the beginning of it, but we're lucky to be very implicated in that also. So so there's interesting things and concepts coming out of that. Those are some of the subjects that I had written down. So those will be on future podcasts, and we welcome any suggestions also, because we've got opinions on a lot of stuff in our world, and yeah. We'd
Exactly.
like to
Remember,
chat about that.
we just want to give you the best knowledge that we have. If we don't
Yeah.
know it, that's another thing. If you
Well,
think
if
we're
we don't
throwing
know it,
stuff
or
like
if
that, we don't know it, but we'll ask people that are very smart. Like, we have access to those
that,
guys that are very
or
smart.
for sure, or if they want to be a guest with us to enlighten us on a subject, like, hey, I'm all open to that. I think that makes for very interesting content and a very relevant contact to people in our areas.
Yeah.
And I know that me and you have discussed eventually to do, if we're at a conference and we're live, then maybe do some live podcasting.
Hey, you're ruining the surprises.
Oh yeah,
Save
I
some
know.
for
I like
yourself.
no, but I like to spice it. Well, to talk like where we think we're going and what we think we should be doing. And maybe I'm saying too much, but hey, c'est la vie.
C'est la vie. Así es la vida.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I hope you like our podcast. We said it was going to be half an hour. Oops, we went an hour. But
Yeah.
it's what it's all about. I hope you enjoyed whenever you are running, driving, maybe connecting some cables in an IT room, and
Yeah.
you want to learn more. We hope you enjoy your first episode ever. So this is Story
Yeah.
recording July 5th, 2025. Let's see how this goes. Thanks
You
for
bet.
tuning in to Maple and Mezcal.
Yes, sir. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Beer. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Yeah, you bet. Yeah.